And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Bench with Bubba, episode 593. Going to recap the Week 11 FAAB, talk some FAAB strategies, and much, much more. As usual, I am joined by the man, the myth, the legend, the king himself. You can find him atop most main event overall leaderboards, somewhere in the top area there. Not hard to find. It says Kurland. He's on Twitter at Mike_Kurland. Mike Kurland, how we doing, my friend?
I need to change my. I wish I could. I'm not changing my Twitter handle at this point in my Twitter career, in my my fantasy baseball career. But I really want to now, just because I just love leaning into it. Obviously, everyone knows it's all in good fun. Good, it's a jest, but it'd be real fun to change it to @KingKurland or maybe I'll change my team name to King Kurland. But I don't want people to misunderstand it as like having fun. You know, you can't have fun without people thinking you're being cocky. So that's where it gets aggravating. I just want it's fun. It's everyone knows we're having fun with it. Our little group is having fun with it. The people who posted it made it know it's all in good fun. It's fish. Come on, man. No one. So it's one of those things where now it's people just they'll want to take it out of context. They'll think I'm being cocky, and that's the last thing I need is people think I'm cocky because I'm doing well in June right now. You know, but anyway. We're having fun. I'm gonna mess with this meme a little bit at the end of the day. But yeah, how's it going, buddy?
I'm going well. Doing well. It's Tuesday. Fun week ahead. We're all 60 or 40% through the season. I think I saw you or someone else tweet out the other day.
I think it's a little more. I think we're just passing that mark.
So we're moving right along. It's flying by, actually, weirdly enough. Usually it's like the longest grind of the year, but it's a grind. Not saying it's not, but we're moving. And it's been fun to watch your success, but then just the overall baseball's been an interesting year with all the different injuries, and we have another rookie got called up on Tuesday that I'm not overly excited. Like, the talent's there. I don't know what the Rangers are doing with Mr. White just yet, so I'm not going to get over it, like analyzing that situation. But yeah, we got a lot of interesting stuff going our way. I guess I'll ask you one question just for fun. And it's not on White because I know you're not prepared for that, and we really don't know a ton except he's a kind of high end prospect, but not really. He's top 100. But the news, since you're a Marlins guy, the news on Jazz Chisholm that he needs surgery at the end of the season. He's going to ramp back up and come back this year. For a guy that, we rely on his speed, that's going to be a massive concern. Probably shouldn't play center field if he's having problems running. My thoughts. What are you thinking about this one? Because I think the reason he's coming back is the Marlins are kind of half contending right now, and that's why they're like, we need Jazz. But this is a sketchy situation to me.
So with Jazz, I just look at it like he only knows one speed to play. You know, he doesn't play slow. It's all or nothing. So he's not coming back and not playing. You know what I mean? Like, even though he won't be 100%, he'll be doing probably cortisone shots or regular like maintenance for the pain. But I don't think Jazz comes back and doesn't go full Jazz. You know what I mean?
Yep, 100%. That's why I'm curious to see how this plays out. I guess we'll get a decent idea during his rehab starts and everything to kind of get a feel on where he's going. But I'd like to see them maybe move him back to the infield or something. We'll have to kind of see how that plays out. Maybe move Luis Ariz to third base because third base kind of sucks and screws over some people with Gene Segura. So guess we'll see how that all plays out. But let's talk FAAB. We're supposed to talk about this last week, but I decided to take this down a whole different rabbit hole. We're going to talk about your FAAB process. And if for those that aren't paying attention, we joke about it, like Kurland said, but it's awesome to see where he's competing for a first timer in the main event, single entry in the main event. I get to see myself and the GTE guys on the back end how much work Kurland's putting into this. Like, he's grinding his ass off to do it. A big part of it is the FAAB process that Kurland's doing. He's looking deep into and this is part of his, his niche, his playing time situations, which he just dropped on his YouTube page, dropped all 30 team kind of where things stand playing time wise right now. So go check that out. That's going to be pretty cool as well. But hey, I'm plugging it because it's good stuff.
It's a lot. Like, the thought, like you made me relive that hour. I'm like, I was super amped. I got started. I was like, yeah, we're gonna do this. I'm like 10, 15 teams in. I'm like, oh, we're only just getting done with the NL. Oh no,
I know, man. I've done league pods, and it's like, oh, this will be done in like 20 minutes, and it's an hour and a half later. You're just like, what the heck just happened?
Yeah, and you're by yourself, so it's like you feel this need to try to be entertaining enough to get by while still being informative, while no lull. And somehow I managed to like hit the wrong button on my stream deck, and it took me to a screen that my mic wasn't connected. So for like a solid 30 seconds, there's like no audio, so I need to edit in post-production a lot of stuff. Anyway, it was a good controlled chaos, but the first half was definitely strong. I brought up the second half. I did okay. I finished strong enough from all I know.
Yeah, so it's on his YouTube. It'll be on his podcast platform later in the day
Probably,
or on
I'll
Wednesday.
say first thing tomorrow, if nothing else. Yeah.
So look for that. But I know I'll be listening to it. But we're going to talk about his FAAB because there's a lot of cool data coming out. Zach Waxman and others are putting out some great information. And the reason, again, I'm bringing it back to the FAAB with Kurland is he's super efficient because he's grinding his butt off and he's finding these like cheaper guys. Like I tweeted it out jokingly because he got me onto Will Brennan last week. I got for $1 and he got him cheap and Brennan was awesome. Well, Brennan was a little more popular, especially in deeper formats this week. We've talked Jesus Sanchez for a while. We got him cheap. Like there's a lot of these little things. And it's I'm not taking full credit for this. It's called a group think type thing. And one of the recent charts that came out is Kurland is the most efficient main event FAAB.
Not I'm top, whatever it is.
You're one of the most efficient in the deal, and he has one of the biggest chunks of change left, which is pretty impressive. But in the top 10, I think you're the most efficient, which is pretty impressive. So, big way as fan. What is your process? Because, like I said, from what I see, and there's obviously more, is going through lineups, going through playing time, so on and so forth. But why don't you give the people a little sneak peek of your process?
So beyond finding who I want to go after, I think we talked about benches last week. Who I go after, it's the whole process in terms of like I don't look at rest of season stuff. I kind of look for the right now, who's doing what's happening, what trends are happening, which direction, pitchers and hitters. Oh, this person, their slider was tighter this start. Why is it having less movement? But it was a little more effective. Maybe this is a thing that's going to stick, et cetera, stuff like that. So like that's how kind of like I just kind of pick and choose who I'm going to bid on based on recent performance, maybe a little bit past track record if I think that this is something that's in their skill set or not. Like Owen Miller, I knew the power wasn't legit, but I know he can steal a little bit. He came for batting average. So that's kind of like one of those things where I'm not going to let certain numbers or certain recent surges dictate my just what we know about a player unless there's actual underlying reasons. But again, that's kind of going into a different set of weeds. And then obviously looking at the schedule ahead is kind of the ultimate tiebreaker of like, all right, well, this guy, he's kind of, moving up in the lineup against these players. He's hitting well. And now he gets 6 out of 7 righties. Sign me up. And that's kind of like how I go that route with just picking streamer hitters. But anyway, so with FAAB, it's kind of that thing is kind of where I take all that process what I'm doing with player analysis and like, playing time trends and recent overall performance trends, etc., and looking for who I think can be good in the short term with potential for long term. And I kind of, depending on do I think this is a short term or long term thing, puts them into a separate bucket already, or do I think, hey, this is a 1 to 2 week guy, this is a 2 to 4 week guy. I'm already creating buckets for these players, and then I'm creating sub buckets of skill sets. What are my perceived needs? I'm looking at league standings. I'm looking at the overall standings. Overall standings fluctuate so much right now. I don't need to worry too much about those. I'm already out of first. We talked about this by a few points, but if I get a win or a save tonight, I'm probably going to be right back up at top or close to it. So it's one of those things where overall standings, although I understand my needs there, I'm not so worried about attacking those just yet because there's so much fluctuation. So I'm still looking at my individual league needs, and usually by addressing one, the other follows. Anyway, so like I said, there's subsets in terms of need, and then like skill set, and then based on who I think is going to be a shorter term ad, longer term ad, I go this route. But the reason why I think I'm succeeding so much in my FAAB process is not only having this super in-depth process, which is probably way more in-depth than that's necessary, or maybe it's what's necessary to have success. It's hard to be determined. It's my first year really doing it like this. So I need a longer sample size to say like, oh, this is really working for me. It's just working for me in this specific league. But being in less leagues probably is a big reason too. I play one main event. I do our OCQ, which I don't know how efficient I've been there, but I've been getting a lot of players we want. Where I think I know we're top 3 every other day. I look, it's like third.
It was first after last night.
So there you go. So we're back in first there, and it's the only other FAAB league I'm doing. But that goes to show you that sometimes maybe less is more for some people. I know me being the guy and super like I gotta try to figure out every little edge I can get. I'm going super in depth with my individual league. You have to understand the hype that's on Twitter /podcasts, because those guys are gonna get there. You have to understand the hype they're being hyped up by certain people with maybe like if Vlad likes a guy more than the rest of the industry and he's pricing him a little, not that he's pricing him differently. I do give Vlad that credit for sure that he always tries to be mindful of the actual market price, not his, and he lets go of his own bias. I do like that, but I still try to look at what he's pricing a player at, and then I try to see, well, I don't agree with that. I like him more or I like him less, because at the end of the day, he's still trying to guess the market. I'm trying to guess my league / guess my own, and then have my own thoughts on it. So there's, that kind of, but it kind of helps to give an idea of the general idea of like what people might be thinking on average. Cool. Okay, cool. So there's a little bit of a market watch there. Well, really what I like to do is just look at your league. I think your league's going to tell you more than the consensus will. People are so focused on the average bid, the average win this, the average win that, who got the highest, who got the lowest. Look at your league's habits. Give it a couple. Like first off, the first few weeks of the season, it's Wild West. You don't know who's going to do what. There's a little bit of a book on some players. Like I know Heberlig's very aggressive. Gable, those are guys are my main event specifically. I knew that they were going to be aggressive early on. So if I wanted somebody, either I had to go big or I had to stay back and hold my chips. And I went for certain players that weren't as popular, like Logan Allen types, that were still good names, but just not the big name, not the Bivies, not the other guys that were getting all the hype. So I knew where I was staying. You know, I knew my lane. I knew which lane I want to stay in, and I knew how much those guys were going to be cool. But I didn't know the rest of them. Now I'm starting to create my own little notes on each of the individual players, and just by seeing what they do. I know there's a certain guy in my league that likes to spend around like 80 to like $80 on average. If he likes the guy a little bit, it's usually $30 to $50 range. And like if he likes it, it's like I understand they're low bids, like they're low to medium, they're high. And one guy I've never seen spend over like $150 some on a player. And even then, they were I don't think I've seen them win. I just caught win that was they were the runner up or something like that. So you start making these notes of like, all right, cool. So I know if this guy has, and then so you're looking at all these little things. This guy bids like this on this type of player, this type of player, this type of player, and this type of player. Remember, and yes, please try to hold up. I understand it's very convoluted, but it's all part of the process of like I understand player spending habits in my own individual league. I try to get a really good grasp of who spends and how they spend, and the type of player they're spending that on. The big name, the speed guy, the power guy, how they attack their specific needs. Oh, there's a saves op, a save spec. This is how they're attacking save specs, and you'll notice that players will start building these. They'll start kind of showing their hands, and maybe they don't realize it, but they're putting certain bids out for certain types of players. Like, hey, this guy's kind of a saves guy, but there's a little more there, so the bid will be a little higher. But this guy's a short-term saves option, so the bid's gonna be lower. And that's almost like they'll treat that same type of bid like, okay, well, this is a hitter streamer. I value him here, so this is how I'm going to bid on him. But oh, this guy has a little more longer-term appeal. They'll kind of take those bids and carry them over based on the player they perceive him as. And where I've been fortunate enough is the bigger bids. Obviously, I've been gauging the market properly in my league for, because I've seen bidding habits, and it also goes back to who has money left. Again, going back to Gable and Heberlig being kind of the bigger wild cards in terms of willing to spend and all that. Those guys are lower on funds. I knew they couldn't get in on these guys, so I knew I can be a little cheaper. Right there, boom! I cut like $100 off my thought process. I'm like, all right, I could drop my bids $100, knowing that these big spenders don't have the funds for it. And then you look at the rest of the remaining guys, like, okay, they have this much money left. This is their tendencies. They have this much money left. Like, kind of the bigger people that I know might need this player or might be after them. Cool. So it's like I'm really just you're getting into the nitty gritty of your own league more so than the market. The market plays a little factor, understanding the hype of a player and all that, but you really have to understand your own league's tendencies. And playing less leagues, I have one league. I'm putting all this effort because I have the time to do so, because it's just one league. Now, if I had 5-6 leagues, it'd be a lot tougher to be able to be so into it, And on top of that, then going back to the needs. Remember, I created my own idea of what this player is worth to me, what I think this player should be worth in general to the league, and then I try to get an idea of who might value them more or less. There's like I knew Julien. I knew there was a very unlikely chance of me getting him again because I wasn't gonna pay big. I didn't get him this week. I really wish I did, but I wasn't getting him. I might have even been the runner up at like $9, which is funny because the next guy was like $20. I wasn't going double digits this week on them. I just wasn't, because one reason or another they seem to send them down. They shouldn't this time. Polanco's gonna be down for a bit, but that's a whole other discussion. We'll talk about that later. But I understood. But it's just one of those things where it's like, so I understand the skill sets, I understand needs. I look at other teams' needs, where they might be going, and then taking all this information in, like, okay, well, I get it all together. I'm like, all right, well, these are the players I really want. So I'll break it down to like my top favorite players. And that's why I really go even deeper. Like, that's why I go team by team, who's competing for these stats, who's where, who's what, who lost who via injury, who might be trying to replace what. And I really try to figure out my main competition for these subset of players. And then from there, it goes right back into the beginning of like, these are my, it goes right back to the beginning of like, all right, let's start from the top now and hit all the fucking, excuse my language, Jesus, hit all the freaking check boxes all the way through. It's just, you can see like my brain's running million miles per hour. I might have talked in circles, but this is what I do for every week. And there you go. It's really long-winded and probably frustrating to listen to. I can't imagine anybody who sat there was able to follow along. I hope you did. And I apologize. If you have any questions, please ask. But it's just it's super convoluted, but it's how my brain works. It's wired different.
Yeah, and that's what makes you continue this year, because it's convoluted enough to make you put all that time in, which is pretty wild. First question I have there, because I was going to ask you, and you kind of brought it up briefly. You have one league. How feasible would this be for, say, you had 3 leagues?
I think that would be the max. That's why I think I was telling you, like, I'm lucky that one league was all I did this year, because it took me playing one league to get my process, to get a process I like and enjoy. And I feel like I'm mainlining it a little bit. Mainlining, yeah. Mainstreaming is definitely different. I'm mainlining it, that it's like I'm getting to a point where I'm comfortable. And now, obviously, a third, almost halfway through the season, I know the habits of these players now. I have an understanding of how the bids are shifting downward because of money spent, blah blah blah. But it's definitely, I think 2, maybe 3 would be the max for me. I can't do this. It's too much work and time and effort. But I do think that time and effort I'm able to put into a specific league is a big difference, or a big reason why I'm having success. But you're seeing players. I think one of the names I saw, the Vlad tag, was the franchise. I believe that's Nelson Souza. He's actually in my league as well, but it wasn't that league specifically. He has, I think he mentioned on the podcast that he went on, I think 10 main events. Like, he went all in on main events this year. So one of his 10 he's been super efficient on, and I couldn't do it 10 leagues. I know I couldn't, but he's finding success at least in one of those 10 in terms of being. But who knows? What if he has a couple other those leagues just outside that list that wasn't mentioned? You know what I mean? It's hard to say. But at the end of the day, because I'm not doing that homework to go look, but at the end of the day, I do think realistically, I'd say 2 for me with this process, and considering that I'm building on it, learning from it. Now, I think I could do 2 to 3. But at the beginning of the year, had I had 2 or 3 leagues, I don't think I would have been this efficient, because it would have taken me that much longer to gather a process to be comfortable utilizing.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there, because like you said, it's so in depth. The one thing, like you talked about, that I know like Guilds has talked about, and some other guys that are very good, and probably many do it, and they just don't talk about it, is looking at your individual league mates, like how much money they have, what their team needs are, and that's a lot of time and commitment to put into that for sure. But that is definitely an angle to go off of, to see where to go. I know you kind of ran around different ways about it, but how do you go about trying to maybe how do you best look at the upcoming schedules besides looking at the GTE chart to tell you, like, hey, these are the guys I'm looking to get. Maybe these guys will come in cheap. Like I use the Will Brennan example, because like I think I do a lot of work. I do the waiver wires and the FAAB articles, and I try to like make sure there's some kind of lower roster guys that stand out based on schedules and stuff. And then you mentioned Will Brennan. I'm like, that's actually a good point. I dug in on him. I'm like, wow, that's actually pretty impressive what he's doing. So how do you go about kind of finding maybe those kind of unicorns, or the ones that you're going to be able to get pretty cheap, that could be like Jake Bowers a while back didn't work out, but same scenarios, guys like that.
Yeah, you picked that. You mentioned right there. Jake Bowers shows you it's not a foolproof plan, but for every Jake Bowers, you get a Nolan Jones and a Jesus Sanchez, hopefully, right? Like, obviously, I think I'm picking the unicorns. And is there some luck involved? Absolutely. You can't sit there and act like there's not. 100%. But there's also a process that led me to the path of these players. Not to mention, Will Brennan was a guy that I knew the skill set of what he had entering the year. So once I saw him start getting going, I kind of had a feeling, okay, I believe it's some of this of what we're seeing, because I already had this idea of who he was coming into the year. Same with Nolan Jones. And Jesus Sanchez was a guy that kind of popped early on when we started looking at the shift numbers. And he was a guy that's like, all right, he was kind of affected by the shift. I know there's swing and miss there, but it's more so like, understand there's power. There's like game-changing power there. And when he runs hot, Sanchez can run really hot, but he's cooled down a lot since. So it's like, I strongly considered sitting him this week, even with the righties, because he has tough Seattle matchups this first period. But I was like, the only reason why I didn't is because Kiermaier isn't guaranteed to play, and I couldn't wait till today to find out. So I picked up Kiermaier, but he also has tough matchups. So it was one of those things where I strongly considered making that flip in terms of just not dropping him, but just switching him out in my lineups, because Kiermaier is a guy that I have on my bench. But it was one of those things where it's like, I'm not afraid to sit a guy when I see signs of cooling down, because he's being exploited. I'm watching his at-bats, biased, one because I'm a Marlins fan, two because I'm rooting for him, and he can't stay off high heat. It's out of the zone. He's swinging at it anyway. He doesn't seem to care right now. Maybe he got a little overconfident. Maybe he's pressing again. I don't know what it is, but it seems like every time there's a ball close to the zone, but up in the zone, he'll swing. So Sanchez is the guy that's like, oh, and I'm starting to cool down. Like, I'm not dropping him, but I'm definitely looking to bench him if I can. But anyway, so part of the process is, so what keeps me on, especially with hitters specifically, because that's what I've been needing to stream after some injuries and some underperformance from other outfielders, or hitters in general, was obviously the content. You mentioned the GT stuff, but it really is my content that keeps me super into it. I'm looking at all 30 teams as often as possible. I did a write-up on all 30 teams yesterday for the Patreon, and that isn't just for them. It is also self-serving. I'm looking at guys like Ryan O'Hearn has been on my watch list. Jason Hayward has been on my watch list. Hayward just had 2 home runs and stolen base last 2 weeks. The average person isn't paying attention to that. And that's where I get my advantages. Like if I really went out, there was a player I wish I remember the name, that caught my attention today or yesterday while doing the write-up, that I was like, I missed this. And that's upsetting because I would have been happy to stream him for like $1 this week. I don't know. I have to go find it so I can keep tabs
I wonder
on him.
who it is now, because I know
I can't. I wish I can. Yeah. I wish I could remember the name. It was just one of those things where it caught my attention. I was like, son of a gun, man. Like, and that actually happened with Ezekiel Durant. I was a day late and $1 short on Durant. Durant went unfabbed in most leagues. I think he was picked up like in 5 leagues the week. I noticed him the Monday after. I was like, oh, he's getting playing time, because I remember him from last year, just that power speed, just a little glimpse of something for a period last year. And I was like, oh man, I like this guy. I remember liking him, wanting him. And I think me and Zach in the tag team got him a couple years back even. So it was one of those things where, okay, this guy, I know who he is and all that, but I missed him. And then the next day he continued hitting and I didn't get him because he went for more than I was willing to spend the week after. So it's one of those things where I don't always get it. So, you see how I hold on to things. I'm very competitive. That's why I refuse to miss on anything else. And that's why I'm hoping I didn't miss on this guy. And I wish I knew the name, because now it's going to bother me. But my point is part of my process is I make a point, usually at least once before the weekend's over, to go through every single team, look at the last 7 and 4. Usually I look at the last 14, and then try to look at the last 7 for some guys. If I think like, okay, I recognize this guy's hitting a lot, because I look at box scores too, so this guy's been hitting a lot this week. And then, so I get names like Tommy Pham was one of my favorite streamers to pick up, because I'm like, oh, he's played 4 straight now that Alonso's out, and he has a little pop, a little speed since the beginning of June. I didn't get him because he went for the same prices as Sanchez and Jones in my league. And I didn't value Pham. That goes back to, I bid on him, but I wasn't that price on him because I don't think he offers the same long-term upside as the other 2 did. That's why I was a little more aggressive with the other 2. And the fact that even for the same price as the other 2, we all understand Tommy Pham can flash, but he hasn't been consistently Tommy Pham for years now. So I don't know. I just wasn't too much in on. I wasn't that much in on him, but I was. But like, yeah. So that's really where it starts off with. It starts off with, I'm going team by team, looking at 14 days performance samples. You can't actually take those and think, oh well, look, they've been good for a week, I can project that. No, but what you're trying to do is sometimes you're just trying to catch lightning in a bottle. You're trying to pair hot runs with good schedule and good schedule, which is good matchups, and just knowing that they're going to be cheap bids just to take a shot on them. You're not, because if you're looking to stream, you're looking to save money and you're looking to try to bank some stats.
Yep.
And I think by monitoring the lineups the way I do, by monitoring playing time the way I do, and by being able to pair playing time improvements, lineup spot improvements, and recent performance all trending the same direction, you land on random names. And it's like, that's why I had Marcano, and then I ended up dropping Marcano the week where 26 teams added him. And I felt really uncomfortable with it. It worked out in my favor this time, but that's not always gonna be the case. It was just one of those things where I was like, and that's where being a step ahead of some people in these deeper formats really gives you an edge. But you still can't just rest on that. You got to kind of keep moving forward, keep looking for the next guy like that. But yeah, it is what it is. I mean, it's a process. It's a lot, but
no, I'm with you. I guess like the way you look at lineups is kind of the way doing DFS every day helps me, because I see all the moving trends. You see guys that are hot, and then I do like content that bases 7 to 14 day, like hot streaks, cold streaks. So it kind of gives a similar streaming appeal. Another thing I wanted to mention, though, you mentioned like Jesus Sanchez slowing down, like Jake Bauers is picking up again. What I wanted to mention to these people, though, like to the listeners, is this is what streamers do. They're very volatile. Like this is what there's a reason they were on our list to stream, is because they do have the ability to go off, but at the same time they're a light switch they can turn off just as fast. And that's what makes, like, even Akil Badu, who worked out for a few weeks, he was cooling down before he got hurt. Like there's the whole,
I was dropping him regardless. Yeah,
exactly. That's my point. Like there's a whole fluctuation. Some of these guys you might drop and pick up and go, especially in 12. It's easy. 15 is a little more difficult, but these aren't players, like we talked about it a few weeks ago, by like streaming bench streamers and just streamers. 2 different things. Like right now, Jesus Sanchez is a bench streamer for Mike Kurland.
I started him this week, but he's slowly trending.
But my point is, you weren't going to cut him. You were going to at least put him on your bench. Where
I will cut him in like 2 weeks, though, like a week or 2. If I have a true need that pops up,
exactly, he's gone. He's near the bottom of the list, and that's what makes it very, very interesting. And that's what this whole FAAB process, like every year, I keep learning stuff because it's wild. The hardest part is, and people will try to ask you all the time what to do, is to nail down the perfect price all the time is next to impossible. 15's not, like, I'm no slight on you, is a little easier, definitely easier, because it's kind of more of a, like, I guess, limited pool. you get into a 12 team and you're experiencing with the OCQ. I got the OCs. I do 3 OCs, and the numbers vary. Like we'll talk about it on this show when we talk Elly De la Cruz and stuff. It is freaking insane. Like literally, I just sit there and I tell myself, I sit down, like I spend my time on my FAAB, and it's like, what are my team needs? What can I afford to spend? I'm not even worrying I try even to focus too much. Like I should do the team by team thing. I might help a little bit, but every time I think that, then some guy comes over the top rope with something. I'm like, what in the heck just happened? So it is the Wild West, as Kurland said. It's quite the experience, to say the least.
And I know, like going back to me not catching everything, just trying to catch as much as possible, because again, the goal is information is king, obviously tangible information. But shout out to Chris Torres, who was like the one guy. So when I noticed it was like a Tuesday, I was like, why is he playing so well? And I look at it, and it's Rogan Odor. And he's
crushing. He's been leading off a lot for San Diego.
Oh no. This was like a month ago. I'm talking about like a month. Like this wasn't now. This was like a month ago. I'm sorry. I should have prefaced this. So I look on the main event. He was rostered in one league and started by Chris Torres. And I was like, that's a heck of a.
Well, that's why he tweeted it out. He said, like real quick, people, check it out.
That was that's impressive. That's not not an accident. He took a shot on something he saw, and that's the type of thing I'm trying to. And that's a kind of a reference point of what I'm trying to do every single week, and how it shows like my process is really good, but it's not perfect because I completely whiffed on that. Not that maybe I don't know if I would have acted on it anyway had I noticed them, but the fact that he did was like kudos. Great stream and great play. And if you held on to him and stream, I know he dealt with an injury, so I think if he got dropped, it wouldn't surprise me, because I know there was like a groin or a hamstring or something weird rounding first not so long ago. But so that was the thing about Odor that was like that's the name that stuck out. Like I really try my best to find that catch lightning in a bottle from a guy who's randomly getting playing time at the top of a lineup, and sometimes and you'll hit, and then but the thing is like maybe I would have dropped prematurely, but I have no problem. Like, I'm a quick trigger finger, quick willing to just turn and burn these guys, and I've gotten better at that. And obviously there are some mistakes along the way, but that was one thing I have picked up from listening to the guys over the years, like by players and other industry types that play NFBC. Like you got to be willing to turn burn. You can't get attached to these late round guys. And I looked at my last 10 rounds the other day, talking to Dom, a bullpen guru on Twitter, talking to him a little bit. And we were just kind of talking about our drafts. And my last 10 rounds, I think 2 out of my last 10 picks are still on my team or were on my team beyond like week 4. And that was it. It just goes to show you like, I drafted the last 10 rounds poorly. So I got to, next year, I can't look forward to next year yet, but next year I'm going to be putting a heavier focus on trying to hit better in those last 10 rounds. But B, it was good of me to recognize, hey, I missed and I moved on so quickly. So it's like I adapted appropriately, considering that I didn't hit on those last 10 rounds the way I would have liked to. But that's where you got to realize, like, you can't get attached to these names. Like, okay, they sucked. Maybe you give them a little bit of runway. And then, okay, I think I gave most of them 2-3 weeks to a month at most. I think one guy, the 30th guy, I dropped right away, which got me a good 2 weeks out of Garrett Cooper back when he had those.
But that's the point. We talk about it all the time in the preseason stuff, like churning and burning the back end of your draft. Take your chances, see what happens. Like most teams that win in the end, they don't have these guys at the end. If they do, you hit some like jackpot players, obviously, and that's another reason why you're winning. But more often than not, these late picks are like, some guys literally take guys that they're going to start for 2 weeks, and then they already plan on dropping them. Like it's all schedule based.
Yeah, that's another thing. I honestly should have looked next year. I mean, again, I can't look. I always look forward to next year because I want to improve on how I'm doing this year. Which I know it's funny because like, oh, you're doing good, Mike. I know, but there's ways to be better, and I want to make sure I'm better going forward as well. But so it's like I'm over here like, yeah, I wish I did that more. Look at the first week or 2 schedules for hitters and pitchers, more so for hitters, because pitchers, I feel like the schedule, I feel like offenses in general are hard to predict based on the previous year. Because there's like, if you go back and look at standings in general, you can realize that standings fluctuate wildly. Like from off team offense, like the Mets haven't been that great, and people probably weren't streaming pitchers against them. So I'm not so worried about like overdoing it on pitcher schedules right away, because you don't know how team offenses are going to produce, or like some teams might be surprises, some teams are going to be terrible. And so, but when it comes to hitters, I feel like I don't know. I feel like not that it's easier to look at pitchers and realize, okay, these guys are still going to suck. But like if you had the A's, if you saw the A's and I don't know, insert another bad team over the first 2 weeks, okay, cool. I feel like those are comfortable streams, at least initially, type of thing. But also, I don't know. I just look at it like I feel like it's easier. I feel like it's safer to try to stream hitters early on than pitchers, we have seen that to be the thing, because pitchers have been getting blown up this year.
Yeah, it's a whole different animal out there, and it'll be interesting to see how it keeps playing out. But Yeah, the FAAB
Actually,
process.
my last 10 rounds weren't terrible. Will Benson didn't work out, and he still hasn't.
He's starting to get some steam.
Yeah,
Though.
but I didn't hold on to him this long. Ryan
100%.
Pepio,
Yeah,
he got injured the first week. Brad Boxberger was a spec. Ryan Bayo worked out. I held on to him too, so that worked out. Max Kepler was good. Now he's awful, or was good enough. He was a good fit out there. Now he's awful. Bryce Trang, I got the best out of him. So and I dropped him like a month. I dropped him like after a month. Like I was like, all right, and he wasn't even starting for me throughout the whole bad part. So I managed him almost as perfect as I could have. I feel like Kyle Gibson, just really solid bench streamer. I actually dropped him even though he's very usable. I didn't like dropping him. I needed some offense. I had too much pitching. I know that's selfish, but at the time I did. Campusano, bust. Matt Brash was just for the first week to ensure no zeros. And my best pick of these last 10 picks outside Bayo was JD Davis, who I cut week 1. Which that hurts because that
would come back to haunt a little bit, but we'll see. Long ways to go there.
But I dropped him because it was a panic pick. I was like, I don't know who I want my last pick.
He wasn't doing anything out the gate. He wasn't doing anything.
Well, not even just that. It was draft season when I'm like, does he even have a regular role? I didn't even know his role. So that's where being aggressive hurt me because although I dropped him and like I mentioned, I go back to that and I look at that. I'm like, I dropped him. Who did I drop him for? Oh, I dropped him for Garrett Cooper, who had a really strong 2.5 weeks to start the year. So I banked those 2.5 weeks. But JD Davis went on to have a good month and a half, 2 months, and he's still good, but he hasn't been as good as he was the first 6 weeks of the season where he was just everything was hitting over 300, hitting for power, doing it all. The 4 category producer we've been waiting on for years since he was a Met. Yeah, that JD Davis, I dropped him. Like I said, I've made some great ads and great streams, but I've made some bad. But you're not going to be perfect, and that's my hardest thing to accept. I'm so competitive that I just don't like making mistakes. That's been so hard to accept that. It's like, hey, it's June. What is it? June 13th. You're going to fluctuate. If you're top 10 entering mid-July, then maybe start buckling up and focus. But relax. You're going to move up and down.
All right, I think we'll wrap up the FAAB talk there. No, it's fine. It's just a lot of good stuff. I want to get into some of these ad drops from the week and then talk our picks. We got some listener questions. So yeah, it's interesting. It's a deep, in-depth process that Kurland has here. And I do some of that, not all of that.
I bet you I even forgot something, honestly. Oh, that was all.
I
wrote it down in the outline, and I don't even think I went. I know I didn't go point by point. I wrote down. I just kind of went off the top of my head.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep. All right, let's talk 12-team OC ad drops for the week and give our 2 cents on these. The most added player, because some of the popular picks. Well, this was the second most popular pick, but Elly De la Cruz was rostered in some, so we'll get to him shortly. Andrew Abbott picked up in all 203 leagues. As high as $3.92, as low as $4. We'll get to Corey Abbott later. But Andrew Abbott, this is a fun one, Kurland, because he had a 2-step last week, and he did not disappoint. His first step was in Great American Small Park, where he threw 6 shutout innings, which was obviously very, very good. It came along with, I believe, 4 walks. And then he went into St. Louis, 5 2/3 shutout. So he's 11 2/3 shutouts, 10 Ks with 7 walks is a bit concerning with Andrew Abbott. Big prospect pedigree. People went all in for him. It was the new taste of the town pitching wise this week. I did not get any shares, but what's your thoughts on Andrew Abbott?
I just couldn't do it. I hated everything. I looked under the hood outside. We might have got his 2 best starts of the season that week, honestly. And maybe he has a couple more in him, so maybe I'll be wrong. But you look at this, it's kind of scary. I mean, the strikeouts aren't there. The walks are really bad. A K- walk rate of 6%, which league average is 14 or 15% roughly. And a good pitcher, we always aim for 20, even 18 and 20. Give me that, I'm good. And his is again, we talked about 6. The swing strike rate 7.1% so far. Chase rate, O swing is at 26%. League average being 31% for that and 11% for the other. So it gives you an idea. He's worse than league average, and 2 spots are very important for strikeouts. He's not getting that. Not to mention, the ground ball rate was 26%, which means he's 46% fly ball and 26% line drive. In that ballpark. It's that's not good. So the fact that he was able to limit damage while not striking out people, I don't believe in it at all. I couldn't get in on that price. And a lot of it is I'm also just really scared of that park. Even the bare best pitchers, Hunter Green, amazing.
Yep.
He's a really good pitcher. If you look at his home road splits, it'll tell you the story. Yep. It's that ballpark has become Coors Light, but it's probably worse for home runs because
it's more productive than Coors Field
because of the dimensions. Coors Field is huge. The humidor helps keep the balls in play, but a lot of extra base hits there. Whereas Cincinnati allows the balls to go over the fence because it's really not pitcher friendly at all. Will he be usable? Absolutely. He's a pitcher showing some type of upside. He's going to have his weeks, but he's overperforming to no end right now to start off. And there's a lot of scary things in that profile that just like we can easily get a 6-run blow up in like 2 or 3 innings any given start. And that's any pitcher these days, but his profile suggests it could be more common than the average pitcher. You know what I mean? Just given the fly ball tendencies and all that. So Abbott's a guy that I don't even think I put a bid on him. I just wasn't trying to land him. I'm okay if you got him for like double digits, but mostly you mentioned triple digits was where he was going. I just couldn't get there on him.
Yeah, I was bidding like $30, give or take. Didn't get him anywhere. The walks scare the crap out of me because that just leads to 2 and 3 run homers, which is the problem. Like I can live with solo home runs if you strike guys out. It's the big ones. He's at Houston this week and at home against Colorado next week. We'll see what this boy's really made of in those 2 starts and see where things go from there. AJ Smith-Schawver picked up in 198 leagues as high as $250, as low as $1. Welcome to the Wild West, folks. This one was tricky for me. I put very low bids in on Smith-Schawver. I like the talent. I see the appeal of people want to compare him to, using him out of the bullpen and all. He started at single A this year. He's already pitched 21, 33, almost 40 innings. Last year, he pitched a total of 68. So how many innings do we really get out of Smith-Schawver? He seems more like a long relief guy that might have a few starts here and there. So I was kind of out on him as a whole. He did go 5 1/3, no earned runs, 2 walks, 2 Ks. So the Ks haven't even been that dominant. So I just wasn't sold. But what about you?
I rather, with the prices considered, I was more on AJS than I was on the other guys, on Abbott, for instance. But I'm with you. I'm not really all that intrigued by him. I think it's fun, the idea of like how high he's jumped throughout the levels already, how he's jumped through like all these levels this year, and he's finding success. But you saw him kind of tail off in the strikeout production at AAA, and then in the majors, obviously small sample, but it's continued to tail off. So I think there's obviously going to be an adjustment period. I think he's worthy of being on a team. I just don't think that I would have been overly aggressive. I wasn't overly aggressive. That's why part of me is I don't need pitching, so it's not fair. It's a little biased. But it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I get it. I couldn't get there at cost.
Yeah, 100% with you on that one. So we went 0 for 2 on these 2 guys. Now we have Elly De la Cruz. He's already rostered in 6 other OCs. So he's picked up in 190. He was rostered in one of my 3 OCs. That's how this went. He was picked up in 197 leagues, as high as 671. And this is fun. As low as 128. So everything was 128 and above, which is good to see. That at least wasn't any freebies out there. Elly's hit safely in 6 out of 7 games, hitting 296, home run, 4 stolen bases, still striking out 37.5% of the time, but almost walking 16%. This is who he is. The guy's an offensive beast. He's super talented. If you're ever going to break the bank, this was the guy to do it for. I just didn't have the funds to compete with anybody. Like all my leagues went higher than what I could have offered. So that's the end of the line for me. I was all in if I could.
Yeah, I'm with you. And this was why I went in on Royce Lewis last week, because I thought Royce Lewis was going to be the best remaining hitter I could afford in the near future. Not that Elly he has the potential to break the league in terms of like being that this year's insert player who wins a league. Only one guy in the top 30 of the overall right now in main events got him, and he's like a top 10 team. So that is concerning for me because Elly De la Cruz has the potential to be a difference maker for the rest of the season and a potential top 3 round pick next year if he flashes the rest of the year, as we know the tools can allow. It's a team in Cincinnati that likes to run. It's a team in Cincinnati that has the great ballpark to hit in, as we've mentioned time and time again on every podcast, including this one as well. It's Elly De la Cruz is a cheat code right now, considering playing time and not platooning and tools. Yeah, he was deserving of the highest bid. And honestly, now we're not going to see another prospect or player come close to this bid level by the rest of the season. But this was it. This was that move you make that can help make or break a season if you're getting close competing, maybe dealing with some injuries. If you lost Aaron Judge, if you lost, like, you remember how we talked about you can't replace Cedric Mullins? I lied. This would be the closest thing to being able to replace an individual player that like that level in terms of like potential. I know it's a rookie, and I'm usually really, really cautious with rookies, but man, you watch him, it's different. You know what I mean? There's a level of confidence I have watching him and envy I have watching him, not having him on any teams, that it's like, wow, okay, this kid is different. At least from what I'm seeing early on. I know he's going to go through slumps. I know he's going to struggle at times, but the tools are going to play out. He's going to go he'll bat 200 with like a 40% strikeout rate over 2 weeks and still give you 2 home runs and 5 stolen bases type of thing. You know what I mean? That's going to be struggling for Elly De La Cruz probably.
Yep. No, I'm with you there, and that's why I like
I
him
hate
a
it.
lot.
I hate it. I don't have him.
Yeah, this one stung. Like in OCs, Toby, good old bat flip, my boy. He's in the top. He's near the top 10. I think he was overall 1 a little while ago in the OCs. He picked up Elly on that team.
That's the type of difference making move, man.
Yeah. When I saw that, I texted him. I'm like, dude, there you go.
That's huge.
And I give him a hard time because he always prefers 15s and hates 12s like you. And here he is, freaking.
Oh, I'm playing an OC next year. I might do 1, maybe. It depends. I might do 1. I just
it makes you like the stress you put into a 15. It makes OCs fun because you're like, wow, look at all this stuff.
But I also. Well,
it also makes it stressful though, because like, which stuff do I pick?
Well, that's the thing. That's where it gives me. It feels like it might give me an edge because I have this. I find value in these players that don't have value in 12s. And I say that with air quotes for those listening.
What I was saying earlier, like me talking with you helps me in 12s because all of a sudden I grab Brennan. It's the most recent example.
Exactly.
But like I grabbed Brennan last week when I was like, we're about to talk about him in a couple players because he was popular this week. Where like no one added him last week. I got him for $1. It was simple. It was a beautiful thing. So yeah.
And that's the thing. So you get him a week early, but here's the reason why I think that I can do well in 12s, or at least maybe do well. I know it's a whole different game. That's why I can't say I would do well. The reason why I think I could do decent is because you take this knowledge and mindset of like how I'm treating our OCQ like a 15, where I'm being aggressive with players I really like and they're big names, and the ability to be aggressive on those players. The reason why I have that ability to play with less FAAB and be a little more heavy-handed on the FAAB is because I know I trust my process for dollar players in 12s because there's so much more to pick from already. And then I'm already on top of it for 15s, take that information, put it over to 12s, and now I'm streaming $1 guys. I can set myself up for 3 $1 guys rest of season and then take the remaining FAAB of like just attack what I want from here on out. That's how I'm treating our OCQ basically.
Hint. And I know he listens to the show. That's what the Guilds does. And he's an OC monster. He won the overall last year.
It makes sense.
He's been a top 5 guy, I think, for the last 5 years. I was in the league with him when he won last year.
I know he's aggressive.
He's done, super aggressive because I'm speaking for him. I could be out of school here. He's super aggressive, but it's also because he's confident in the cheap moves like you're talking about. He does well in main events, 15s also. So he
needs to go away. He has 2 teams that are too close to me.
That's what I'm saying. I think there's a similar thought process that you just mentioned that he uses also in OCs. And I've witnessed it firsthand from him. So it makes a lot of sense. Next up, here's a blast from the past. Gary Sanchez. Couldn't make any teams. Couldn't make the Giants. Couldn't make the Mets. Here he's with San Diego. He's picked up in 128 leagues. This is funny. This is great. Why can't I be in this league? Picked up for as high as $220, as low as $1. I get the $1. That's fine. I can get like $12 if you wanted to. $220? No. In his 12 games with the Padres since May 30th, he's hit safely in 9 out of 12, hitting 256, 5 home runs, 30% K rate. Actually, in reality, not that bad for El Gary. A near 14% barrel rate, almost a 59% hard hit rate. He's either DH or catching every single day. They're keeping that bat in the lineup. I was definitely in on him where I needed to upgrade catcher. No doubt about it. No chance in hell I was spending over like $15. I was in like the $3-4 range pretty much everywhere. But here we are. Gary Sanchez, the 4th most rostered player this week.
Yeah, and he's batting in the middle of the order too. He's batting 4th or 5th like every day, which is blowing my mind. But over the last week, I just took a look because obviously he ran so hot. The 35.7% strikeout rate over the last 7 games, and then he's 1 for 9 in his last 2 games. He's 2 for 14, but one of those 2 is a home run over his last 3 games. So we know what Gary Sanchez is, and I think what he did was come out those gates swinging, literally, making a lot of hard contact, which we know he can do in bunches. I think Sanchez is still going to be. I don't think he's suddenly not that guy anymore. I think it's just one of those things where it's, look what he's doing, and you got to jump on it for sure. But I don't expect it to last just because we have a big enough track record of it not lasting. But it really is fun. It's fun to. I mean, it would be more fun if it was on my team. But it's fun. I did go for him last week because catcher 2s and 15s is getting real bleak, and I just refused this. I think somebody just went double digits or something, just something higher than, like you mentioned. I wasn't willing to go more than like $4 or $5 because I'm trying to save money. So I ended up with someone else who didn't do as good as him, and now I'm upset. but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I can't dwell on that. It is what it is. Like he's gonna do good things. He's gonna run hot in bunches. I think Sanchez is. We've seen it happen in the past, and I think that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, and one thing I was kind of fun because I preached it in my preseason content where I covered catchers for the Black Book and preview podcasts and everything. I kept saying last year, like it's the new running back position. There's like a couple of elite catchers, and then it's like all these committees. So you can stream catcher a lot. This year, it's kind of been like there's been a dude here, like all of a sudden Blake Sable, if he didn't draft him, kind of showed up. Patrick Bailey shows up a couple weeks ago. This past week, there was, for me, if you didn't add him last week, you had Sanchez, Miguel Amaya, and Yinar Diaz. They were all available at least in 12s. Like we're starting to get to that point in the year where catchers are getting hurt again because we're halfway through the season. Basically, you're gonna start building stream catchers again. Is what I'm trying to say. So don't spend $200 on a freaking catcher. Like especially a guy like Gary Sanchez. Like you hit on it. We know he's streaky. He's gonna go on a slump that's gonna piss so many people off. And then you're gonna be able to grab him again for
most
a buck
of us
like,
might have missed. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. You're going to be able to get him for a buck in August. Like, that's just how Gary Sanchez will be.
Most of us missed that. That arguably was probably the best week of the season was probably on the waiver wire. You know what I mean? Or close, or like last week.
It's something I say all the time is you're buying the stats you can't have.
Yeah.
it's
and for those who play in trade leagues, be mindful of that too. You can't get the stats that have already been banked by the person trying to give you the goods, like they're trying to sell high they're sell highs for a reason. You just have to be mindful of which ones are actually sell highs and which ones you're buying high because you believe in. And I don't do trade leagues. I hate even answering those questions anymore. Not that I'm better than that, but it's because I don't keep an eye. I don't keep a hand. I don't understand the pulse of trade leagues anymore. Just not being in them keeps me out of the loop of what a player's perceived value might be. But at the end of the day, that goes back to the rest of season stuff. And I hate that too. So it's like, that's probably why I hate trades, because you're trying to value rest of season where it's like, I don't know, man, I'm trying to win right now in the short term. I worry about the big picture. It's hard to worry about the big picture. I don't know. And then there's rest of season projections where it's like, cool, this is the projections the rest of the way. But when are you likely to get these stats? Because these stats aren't going to, the idea is you want to bank all these stats, but you also want to try to pick and choose your spots with a certain player. Okay. Anyway, another rabbit hole. Sorry.
Yep. The next player, the fifth most added player this past week is Will Brennan in 106 leagues, as high as $36, as low as $1. Since May 29th, he's played in 12 games, hit safely in 10 of them, hitting .417 with 2 home runs, 2 stolen bases. What I like to see a lot, a 15.7% K rate to go with his 250 ISO. He's just doing the little things he's doing against lefties too. That's been well highlighted with Kurland and company. So I love what we're seeing here from Will Brennan. I know we've talked about him quite a bit, but do you have anything else on Brennan?
No, it's just one of those things where Brennan is kind of finally becoming the player I thought he would be in terms of like the way it was in the preseason. I'm like, this guy has a little pop, a lot more speed and solid bat to ball skills. Always a contact rate, always a big contact rates, good zone contact rates. It's always been a skill of Brennan's, and he's finally putting it together after a very rough start. But they believed in him so much that they sent down like one of the guys that came up last year and was just like a savior for this team. And savior is a strong word, but Oscar Gonzalez was a very, very solid player for them. And they didn't even give him a chance to take a full-time role. And they were platooning these guys off rip before sending down Gonzalez right away. So it's one of those things where I'm like, huh. So, and then of course, now that they hit on him, or now that they finally gave him the opportunity, and then the fact that Will Brennan started hitting was like, okay, time to add him. Let's see where this goes. And it's been really solid so far. So I'm just riding it out at this point too.
Yep, I'm with you. Next up, Joey Wiemer was added in 105 leagues. He's the 6th and last 100-plus league player on the week. As high as $48, as low as $1. We've talked about Joey quite a bit on here. If people don't follow me on Twitter, you should know my infatuation with Joey Wiemer. And it's one of these things, the glove was always going to keep him on the field. The production overall has been great of late. In 318 since May 30th, 3 homers, 3 stolen bases, 29% K rate, but a 16% walk rate. 318 ISO is electric, 55% hard hit rate, 21% barrel rate since the 30th. He's had a couple big weeks. He is over in his last 3 games, but I'm not too worried about Joey. Sal Frelick is rehabbing, so that'll come back eventually. But Joey ain't going anywhere, I don't think, anytime soon. And the fact that the Brewers are seeing it as well, because they moved him up to second a couple times now, 5th one game, so he's not just at the bottom of the order. We'll see how that goes. But I'm a big Joey fan. People know that by now. He's going to be streaky. I'm not going to say he's going to be a locked-in dude, but the talent is there, and I think he's starting to finally tap into it.
Yep, and I think he's finally just being more consistent is really what we needed to see there. And I'm trying to see if the lineup came out for them again tonight yet.
I haven't seen it yet
because I was just curious to see where they were hitting. Because I think the one time he batted fifth recently was actually against a righty, which is what I wanted to see. I have to double check that. But that's the second when he was batting second or whatever, it was against a lefty. And maybe batting fifth was against lefty as well. I know they've run against some lefties recently, but Wiemer's he's a dude, man. I think he's gonna be a little streaky with his skill set, but I think the tools are legitimate. I think the power and speed you're seeing is very much a skill set of his. You just have to understand you're taking that with some batting average risk. That's all.
Yep, most definitely. We already talked Jesus Sanchez. Just want to bring up he was added in 89 leagues as high as $89, as low as $1. I wanted to ask you about the next one here because this is a guy you've battled with year in and year out, and so have the Minnesota Twins. That's Edouard Julien coming back up because Jorge Polanco with another hamstring injury. I'm thinking at least a month for Polanco. Nothing's been set in stone, but it doesn't sound great. Julien was added in 84 leagues as high as 122, as low as $1. And it's interesting with him. Like we've seen the production in the minors, in the bigs, it just has not panned out at all. Like 293, 5 homers, 3 steals in AAA. The overall production in the bigs has not been there. But since he's been called up, he's got 3 hits in 2 games. Obviously, small sample, double in each of them. What are you thinking here with Edouard Julien? Because I know we talked about both putting in bids for him. You're muted.
I know. My kids are screaming for me because it's summer and my dog's going crazy. Gotcha. So I was trying to scream like, "Hey, I'm in the office!" Like, because my dog's going nuts right now, and we have company, and I was trying to squeeze this in while they were out at the pool. Gotcha. You know, because my wife has a friend over. It's the whole thing. Anyway, gotcha. It doesn't matter. What I am doing though, why'd you open the door? Oh my goodness. Anyway, so yeah, you're gonna hear my kids stuff background. Sorry about that. But anyway, but Edouard Julien. Oh my goodness. I don't know why my son did this. Oh my goodness, this is fun. So Julien, like him, leading off, likely gonna platoon, unfortunately, but strong side. Okay, hold on. I'm at the step out, Bubba. 1 second. You're gonna have to handle this. But yeah, Julien, platoon bat, solid, legit, power speed, but big trouble. 1 second.
No problem. Yeah, Julien, it's an interesting situation with Julien because we've talked about him in the our little chat quite a bit. Minor league numbers, like we talk about, even after he got sent down this last go around, were better. But there's just the concern of the platoon situation. Where does he go when if Polanco comes back, whenever that could possibly be? But it's a very, very sticky situation for Edouard Julien. And does Kurland have more information on Edouard Julien?
Yeah, sorry about that. No, it was just chaos. My kid, like I said, everybody just came in. My kid decided to act up. Just ignore the dog. But at the end of the day, Julien is just he's a beast, man. I really do buy into the skill set. I really think he's legitimate. It's just one of those things where the team doesn't seem to want to keep him up ever. It feels like the Edward Alvarez treatment of just like up and down. But they both had issues with defense. They both could hit well while they were up. I think Julien's obviously a better player. It's just the comp in terms of how they're being treated by their teams comes to mind. But Julien should be up for a little bit. Like I'm sure you mentioned Polanco's injury being a good reason why, an indication why you should believe in what you're seeing from Julien, or in terms of playing time. But it's one of those things where you just know he's in a platoon, know you're gonna have to sit him against lefties, and he even got pitch hit for the first game that he was back up. So just as of right now, it's a strict platoon, and understand that it's gonna be a little frustrating, but the skills are legitimate and better in OBP formats type of thing. Average could be a little bit of a drain, but play appearances, check. A little bit of power, check. A little bit of speed, check. Like he's doing checks all the boxes. And strong side platoon with those types of tools, you want that.
Yeah, what I was interested in with him was, it's the old story. He's gotten his feet wet a couple times. Like here's round 3. I think he's going to be a little more comfortable this time around. Like I with the Polanco injury, like I said, I think it's at least a month. So he's going to be able to get a run to see what he's got. So I was a little more intrigued with him. Plus, you're not playing the premium that you had to pay the first couple times he came up, which makes it fun as well. Brian Wu from the Seattle Mariners picked up in 84 leagues as high as $84, as low as $1. It's a weird one with Wu. Like the pedigree's fun, big time strikeout stuff. He went 4 2/3, 2 runs, 7 Ks against the Angels his last time. Got lit up by Texas, but who doesn't get lit up by Texas these days? He's just not going deep into games. Like the strikeout stuff's great. I guess I didn't mind him, but I wasn't going all in, so I got 0. But what do you have on Brian Wu?
I think Wu is one of those guys where it's in that Varland discussion in terms of just. I mean, I think he has a higher prospect pedigree and probably has a higher ceiling, honestly, than Varland. But I say it's in that discussion because he was a cheaper guy that people weren't so excited on because he got lit up. And I think the best is yet to come. And we saw him take that step forward. Only 4.2 innings in the second outing, but had the 7 strikeouts, only 1 walk, only 2 earned runs on 4 hits. Like he took a huge step forward in that outing. And although there might be a happy medium in terms of the lines we get, but from what we saw with Wu, I think we know the ceiling is going to be there. He has a path to innings, a path to pitching for this team in the short term, at least. I think that it's just a lot of recency bias. We like to be reactionary as a community. We saw him get lit up and the bids were down. That's why he was so cheap. I think we didn't give him a fair shake, and those who took advantage of it, I don't think he's going to be I'm not saying he's going to be a difference maker by any means, but I do think he can be very useful right now, at least in the near future.
Cutter Crawford adding in 82 leagues, as high as 45, as low as $1. Popular name around the NFBC Twitter world. I've always been a Cutter Crawford fan. I was had some bids in on him, not crazy. He's gone 3 innings in his last 2 starts as they're trying to stretch him back out. He's given up 5 total earned runs, or 3 total earned runs, 3 Ks in both. Like we've seen moments earlier this year and even last year where he was very, very serviceable. We've seen other moments where it's very, very scary. What was your thoughts on Crawford during the weekend?
I think we talked about him a little bit in general last week because I think we had a question about him. The only unfortunate thing about him is that he's not getting, he's not stretched out all the way. 3 innings in each start. We know the fastball will play. Will the rest follow? I think he's in that bench streamer discussion of you want him on your team, but he's not a must start. In 12s, it's a little tougher too because again, you want more volume, more consistent volume, whereas he's not quite there yet. I don't know if but in 15s, I like him a lot more just because I think that he can be something that's very useful for fantasy purposes in those formats more so than 12s, just considering the lack of volume we're getting right now. But Crawford as a whole, I like him. I don't think I'm not as high as others are in the industry on him, but I do see the appeal, and I do think he's very much worthy of being on a roster without a doubt. It's just a matter of I'd like to temper my expectations just because I feel like there's so much. I feel like we've seen really good and really bad and a lot in between, like some really serviceable outings mixed with good ones, mixed with okay, that's okay again. And until we see him stretch out and consistently pitch 5+ innings and give us decent contributions while pitching deeper, it's hard to get overly excited because last time he's pitched more than 3 innings was all the way in April 17th was the last time he's pitched over 4 innings in a game. So
that's one of the big concerns with me is just the utilization with him, I guess, is how's that going to go down. But I guess we'll have to wait and see how that goes. All right, if you're ready, sir, let's do some our pickups for the week and see where things good. I know you have the one big league, so what'd you get this week?
One player. I didn't. One whole player, Kevin Kiermaier. It was just because I wanted a little outfield depth. I wasn't trusting the playing time for a couple guys, or Gurriel kind of iffy. Is he going to be healthy or not? Laureano, he's been hitting the lineup, but he hasn't played every day. He randomly gets 2 days off on occasion. So I was like, let me just get some outfield depth. A guy who's shown a little bit of power, a little bit of speed this year, part of a great lineup. I know batting ninth is not great for Kiermaier or any hitter, but he's performing way better than I think anyone expected, and it's been consistent. And we've seen stretches in the past from Kiermaier being that type of player where he's been usable. But this year, it's pretty much been all year. So I took a chance, and I'm like, and by chance, I mean I spent a whole $3 on a guy who's hitting 295, 4 home runs, 5 stolen bases, good plate discipline. He's doing what I would like from a guy that I could plug and play. They had 5 righties this week out of 6 matchups. So he was like my 4th conditional. $3, and I was like, I'll take him, and probably end up dropping him this week. So all that consideration for a guy that I don't see myself holding on to, and not to mention I'm in that point of the season where I'm holding on for injuries. I'm kind of seeing where things are going, and I need to free up a spot or 2 on my lineup. But I like it. I'm kind of set right now. But again, if Jesus Sanchez starts slowing down really bad, or the thing is, I guess what I'm getting at is my streamers. I've been streaming. That's why I've been like, I have 3 or 4 or 5 moves a week. My streamers have been producing now, so I haven't had to stream. It's it goes from 5 to 4 to 3. Now it's down to 1. I was Owen Miller stuck on my team this week, so I've made conscious efforts to hold on to certain players that are performing beyond the 1 week right now. Yep. So that's where I'm like, I get 1 move, yay! So it's more for you, Bubba.
All right, my first OC, I'm really pissed at myself because I somehow missed this, but so did the rest of the league. Tristan McKenzie was on the waiver wire. He got picked up for 446, as low as 313.
Would you have bid enough on him?
I didn't add that much, but if I would have noticed like a week or two ago. Yeah. My point is no one noticed it in my league. So like I'm mad at myself because I could have got him for like $1, but also somehow no one else knew. No, I looked. Drafted? I just looked. No, he got drafted. Oh, that's a good point. Maybe he didn't. I'll have to go down. I'll have to deeper dive because I scrolled for like 2 months of FAAB. I didn't see him get dropped. He might not have got drafted. That's a great point because that was he probably didn't because I did this draft the night before the season started. So that makes sense. You're a smart man. I feel a little better now. I feel a little better because I even mentioned it in like our group chat on Sunday doing my FAAB. I'm like, Tristan McKinney's Elly De la Cruz. Fuck. And I need pitching in this league. Elly De la Cruz went for 416, as low as 313. I picked up Jack Flaherty. He was dropped last week. I got him for $37, runner up 27, dropped JP France. I've been talking Jack Flaherty up on some of my other content lately. I like the improvements we're seeing. I don't think he's ever going to be the ace this year we've seen. Over his last 6 starts, just 3 earned runs or less. He's going to have 8 total runs in 35 innings, striking out 36. The walks are an issue.
I don't understand how he's doing it with the walks. You know what I mean? Take away the walk.
It was in 3 of the 6 starts. His other 3 had 1, 1, and 2. I agree. Still an issue. Not going away.
I'm just surprised how he's been consistently outproducing those. Imagine if he was even okay with walks.
Yeah. With the walks, a BABIP, like. I guess my point is like I'm willing to take a chance on the dude and see if we can figure this out. It's still scary, but compared to other streamers out there, I'll take my chances with Flaherty. Let's put it that way. But yes, I agree with where you're going with all.
I just don't understand. I'm just surprised it's working. I don't like how he has one of his. I think he has a career high BABIP, the second highest walks per 9 of his career. But man, he's managing to have the lowest home run to foul ball rate of his career. So it's a weird like, hey, I'm going to start walking. Maybe that's why. Maybe he's limiting the home runs by not giving him as much to hit because he's not throwing him in the zone. I don't know how this is working out, but Flaherty's making it work, and it makes no sense. He's serviceable when he shouldn't be when you look at the metrics. So I get it. I understand why you added him. I understand why people are streaming him and all that, but it is a scary game you're playing.
Yes, it is. He has the Giants today. He has a 2-step this week, so we'll see how it goes.
Oh, God.
I picked up Reese Olson, dropped Paul Sewald because I have so many saves. I have like 5 closers in that league. Again, this is an OC situation, dropping Sewald. I get it. Someone's going to love him. And I was like, it was between Sewald and Puck. Who would you have dropped?
Probably, I don't know.
It's real close. It's real close. Like, I was going to be mad at myself either way, I have a feeling. With Munoz coming back, I went Puck. That was my kind of theory there.
So against lefties, because obviously the Giants are going to platoon the heck out of this game. Flaherty has a 1.75 whip against lefties, a K- walk of 7.6%. That's one single digit, 7.6%, compared to a 14.4% against righty. So lefty, what I'm getting at is his lefty numbers are way off. His xFIP is 498, his FIP is 502. Meanwhile, against righties, they are sub 4. Both of them, one's closer to 3.5. I'm just making you. I want you to sweat so bad tonight. You're welcome.
See, I added Reese Olson, dropped Paul Sewald, 8-0. No runner. See, I was going for Olson because I couldn't afford Abbott or Smith-Schawver. I thought Olson was the third guy there.
Oh,
he's been decent in his first 2 starts.
Oh no, you're still talking about Reese Olson, but Flaherty has a 6.25 walks per 9 against lefties, and he also has a 1 home run.
He also has a 1 friends are for people.
He also has a 1 home run per 9 against lefties, and this is again 0.454 against righties.
Would you rather spend $140 on Andrew Abbott or $37 on Jack Flaherty?
Next question. No, but I just want my goal here is to make you realize, like, if there's ever a time to be concerned, it's tonight, because the Giants are going to throw every lefty in their arsenal at Flaherty.
I'm very aware as a Giants fan. I'm aware.
I know you're aware. That's what I'm saying. So I want you to understand that you're rooting for your own demise in a sense.
But see, next week Flaherty faces the Nationals. I'll take my chances. The Nationals are pesky,
they're pesky against lefties though. So yours, like, I'm scared against Luzardo. Already bombed my week in a sense, and now he has to go face a weirdly tough Nats team against lefties, so we'll see how that goes.
So back to my moves. Joey, I added Joey Wiemer for $6, runner up for 3, dropped JP Sears. Added Luis Rengifo, who's actually playing very, very well. This is a streamer, folks. Dropped Jake Fraley because I have too many IL guys. That one stings, but this is, again, OCs 3-0. The next OC, I have 3 total OCs, so the next OC, Griffin Canning dropped Adrian Hauser 11-3. Added Jake Bowers, dropped Ezekiel Tovar 4-1. And Tovar's playing good. Don't get me wrong. I had extra middle infielders. Added Tommy Pham, dropped Mark Kana 3-0. Added Yainer Diaz, dropped Jan Gomes 3-0. Added Ryan Noda, dropped JP Sears 2-0. Apparently a lot of dollars would have worked really well there. But I want to make sure I got these guys. That's why I went a little higher than $1. In my last OC, added Reese Olsen because I needed pitching badly and I had funds. I dropped Tommy Henry 17-6. Added Cutter Crawford, dropped Wesneski 6-0. Added Will Brennan, dropped Senzel 4-0. I was the only league I didn't have Brennan in. Added Edouard Julien, dropped Casey Schmidt 4-0. Added Luis Rengifo, dropped Mike Mayers 3-0. So I needed a lot of help. That was the most money I had in any league. So we got a little more aggressive there, but a lot of somethings to zeros. Lots of fun. And it reminds me we're getting to that time of the year in OCs where a lot of zeros will start popping up. All right. Now the fun begins. Listener questions. We got a few, so we have to run through these. First one for us today. Pretty Chill Braj asks, I traded Brian Wu for Logan Allen and Romano. Keeper years the same, 3 years or more. Who won? I'd say Logan Allen and Romano side. Pretty simple.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, Sam asks, what's up with Ryan Mountcastle? I know he had the shits for a bit there. And then they're just starting to platoon him with Ryan O'Hearn. Go figure 2023, folks. That's why I was going to mention O'Hearn earlier when you mentioned him. He's actually playing very, very well right now, which is hilarious. And it's keeping Ryan, like, not to mention Mountcastle's been ill. I was being sarcastic. I don't know what his actual illness is, but he's been ill. But O'Hearn's playing good enough. There's kind of a platoon going on there, but you'll know more than me.
So looking at Mountcastle splits, because I was curious about that myself. Yeah, his righty is weird because I didn't expect this to even be a thing. And I know he's been missing time because he's been ill, so I don't understand exactly what's happening. If it's more so like easing him in, letting him be kind of like used sparingly, so to speak. But Mountcastle only has faced 2. The problem is he's sat 3 straight, so because of the issues. But he's probably gonna go back to playing every day. But if you look at splits against Rays this year, that's where Mountcastle struggles have been. So what on the year, over 1,000 OPS against lefties, a 534 OPS against the righties this year. 43 WRC plus against righties this year for Mountcastle. It's horrendous. Almost 29% strikeout rate compared to 14.5% against lefties. So Mountcastle is finding legitimate struggles against righties. Will he platoon moving forward? I don't buy it. I think right now we're seeing him miss time because of the illness, obviously. But beyond that, he's faced 15 out of the 20 right-handed pitchers they faced last 30 days. And that so take away the 3 games. Say we take away the 3 games he's missed because of injury, or 2 righties. So we'll say 15 out of 18. So he's still facing majority of the righties throughout the whole month, basically. I don't think Mountcastle's suddenly out of playing time against them, but considering how bad the splits are, I don't want to say that they'll platoon him, but I never thought they would have platooned Mullins last year, and we saw them kind of do that down the stretch. So I'm not saying that Mountcastle's in trouble for a platoon all of a sudden, but I'm just saying we do have a track record. We do have a track record of one of their best hitters and leadoff hitters at that getting platooned and moved down against the weak side of their platoon. So,
and I'll be honest, in OCs, Mountcastle might be droppable. I 27-11 homers. It's getting close.
I'm trying. So for his career, yeah. See, that's weird. For his career, Mountcastle's been fighting against righties, so I think it's more. Yeah. I mean, not great, nothing fantastic. A 102 WRC plus is 2% better than league average. A 737 OPS isn't great. 251 batting average is fine, but he's always been a lefty masher but he's always been a decent hitter against righties. I guess I also just don't buy O'Hearn being a thing. So I think that's why
I'm with you.
That's really why I wouldn't be too concerned about Mountcastle losing playing time. But, and I say this because there's that outside chance, like a 5% chance that, well, they've done it before with Mullins, but the difference was they had, I think, like, I know McKenna isn't anything. I would say I know McKenna isn't anything special, but last year McKenna
against lefties was a big thing.
I viewed McKenna but O'Hearn is suddenly a thing against righties. I don't buy that.
Yeah, I don't buy it
because he's never really been a thing in general. McKenna has shown like times that he can be serviceable against lefties, so that's why I understood it last year. But yeah, at the end of the day, I don't think he gets platooned. But the righty splits are noticeably terrible and could continue to hinder him rest of the season. But as long as he keeps crushing lefties the way he is, I think you'll almost not even notice the splits. Because I've never even thought to look at his splits because Mountcastle's always been so steady and consistent. This was the first time I've really thought to ever look at splits and realize, oh, there is a weirdly like There's it's almost like Rowdy's Les splits, you know?
Yeah, Rowdy's a whole other topic we might have to talk about next time because that's getting a little
Well,
annoying as
he's
well.
platooning, and
Yeah,
he's just awful
yeah,
right now. But
yeah, that's what I meant. Well, we might have to dig into that at a later time. Irving asks, "What?" This is funny. We'll go one by one here. What do you do with the rookies like Taj Bradley? You keep pitching him.
Yeah.
Well, Yuri Perez, on the other hand, if you can trade him, I'd trade him. Be prepared to drop him when he goes back to the minor leagues. And you were warned about this one going into it. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, we've been. I think not just us, but a lot of people. I think there's also been, but there's been some people like, well, he's been so good, they're not going. But then Mish, I think Mish said it on podcast, and then he tweeted it the other day. So
it's common knowledge now. It was one of the things why when we talked about when he was picked up earlier this year, why I wasn't as heavily into him. It's because he wasn't going to be around for long.
It was one of those things where he's been really helpful while he's been here, absolutely. But when he goes down, I don't know. And I'm over here thinking like, is it a month? Is it 2 months? Do they bring him? Like, do they drop him? Like, do they bring him down for 2 months, bring him back up for the last 2 months of the year while they're trying to compete, type of thing? Like, there's so much question marks in terms of how long is he down too. I don't think it's just a couple of weeks. I think it's a minimum of a month because they're trying to conserve his innings
a little bit.
I don't think if it was 2 months, it wouldn't surprise me. But I can't say with confidence it's 2 months, so I can't be like, oh, you should drop him. But it's going to be a talking point to consider it because I think there's a real possibility it's 2 months or more that he's down, or at least maybe 6 weeks to 2 months. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Rob McCabe on Twitter at Sleerat Nation. He does a lot of these cool things. That's how we know about your efficiency and everything. He put out a tweet this morning about Yuri Perez bids in the main event. He said Yuri Perez might be optioned soon. 52 main event teams spent an average of $208 on him in week 8. So that was like 3 weeks ago. $415 was the high, 167 was the low. Sure feels like a lot of money spent on a kid being sent back down just weeks after being called up. So this is why
Taj Bradley.
But Taj came back. We figured Taj would become that quicker because they were working on things. Yuri legit had these concerns.
Oh yeah, and we always knew it was good. It was him and Mason Miller that were like, they're huge upside here, but you have to know it's almost like a rental. It's almost like you're getting it now, and now there's a good chance you're gonna have to burn a lineup spot for a good period of time while they're sending them down. Because
I drop them unless you're in a deep league. They can afford to hold.
That's what I'm saying. In a 15-teamer, it's hard to let go of that because what are you replacing them with?
Yeah.
Resultson's not even available. You know what I mean? Like,
when Yuri comes back, because he's going to throw some in the minors, so his innings pitch are going to keep going up. He might just be a long relief bullpen arm when he comes back.
There's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts. That's the problem. That's why it's.
Yeah.
I knew he'd get sent down. I think we all kind of. That's the thing. We didn't know if he'd pitch all his innings now. Would he get some now, some later? And from what Mish was saying, it's pretty much that Marlins want to put him down now, massage his innings, bring him back for a run at the end of the year. But how much of a run? A month, 2 months, 6? Like, you know what I mean? Like 2 months waiting on him just for him to come back and still be a 5-inning, 80 or 90 pitch guy. That's already limiting his upside too. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but he's been very efficient.
Yep.
But he's had to be because I think they have like a hard limit of 90 pitches for him in a game.
Yeah, there's a lot of 85 pitch outings. Yep. I talk about it on the DFS show every time he comes to start. I'm like, I love the guy. He's priced high though for a guy that we're going to be lucky to get 5 innings out of.
Next year's the year.
Yes, bingo. There you go. The last guy, and I saved him for last because he was put last, but this is your boy. What are you doing, Louis Varland?
I'm holding on to hope. So he had a couple rough outings, and this last one I'm biased, but I watched it and he got screwed out of getting out of that 5th inning, but that's another discussion. Doesn't matter. The results are the results. He's been lackluster and it's been really upsetting. He's been more of a team streamer. He hasn't been an auto start but like this week I was going to bench him, but I gave him one more start. I mean, it's Detroit. You throw your guys. I'm just afraid my 8 of returns this week, but somebody brought it to my attention. This is where I should do better at paying attention to schedules because I missed this. So that's why it's good to have some friends to help you out. But Dom pointed out again, bullpen guru, me and him been talking a little bit. He's like, yeah, because he's very in on Varland as well. But he's like, dude, I think they might just go 6-man. They have like 1 day off in the next 18 days or something wild. It's a very heavy schedule for them. So a 6-man rotation right now makes a lot of sense. And by then it can figure itself out. Maybe Varland just sucks and gets sent down. Maybe Maeda gets hurt again. Maybe Pablo Lopez goes down because he's known to get hurt from time to time. So it might just figure itself out. But I really expected to have him being on my bet. I was going to hold on to him for a little bit just to see because almost like Varland. Like I really wanted to hold on to Varland because I never trusted Polanco to stay healthy. I just couldn't because of all the other injuries I was taking on. It was just bad timing for me to hold on to Varland. So it sucks I don't have him right now. But at the end of the day, I would try to hold on to Varland I meant Julien. I think I said Varland. I meant Julien. The whole like me trying to hold on to Julien was really tough. I couldn't because of the injuries on my team and all that compiling. But this is for the same reasons I want to hold on to Varland, where I think there's enough upside there to hold them and enough reason to believe that those injuries are going to crop back up for another pitcher. Well, he'll just be right back up, not too far after being sent back down anyway, if he gets sent down.
Got to be quicker with these, Kurland.
I can't.
Trivia Corner number 1 fan says Tovar is batting second over the last 3 weeks, hitting 310 with 2 homers and 2 stolen bases. What are we thinking on Tovar?
Yeah, I think he's finally coming into his own. It just took him some time to adjust.
I'm with you. Next up on the docket here, Ballpark Fantasy, hold or drop Yuri Perez if options. I say drop. Kurland says hold as long as you can.
Yeah, in a 12, I see dropping him, but in a 15, I'm holding for a little bit.
For sure. Eric at Dad Jokes asks, what's a good resource for finding out who is going to be a bulk reliever guy for their team when they decide to do a bullpen game?
I don't have a set resource. I just happen to know either by even looking. Roto World will have some notes on it sometimes. If not, just understanding which teams do it and knowing who their main bulk reliever is. But it's
follow beat writers. A lot of it's just consistency with the team. Like Kurland said, they have their guys. That's just the best way we can put it. Tom Rodriguez has a great question. What can we expect rest of the season from the red hot commodity Corey Abbott? Being sarcastic. I saw the look on your face there.
Well, I had to register. I heard Abbott. I was like, oh wait, Corey. Yeah, no man, that's rough. It was like one guy.
Yeah, 8 out of 10 of them. And then We Good Studios ask, looking to trade Strider and Ezekiel Duran in Dynasty, would Riley, Vargas, or Bryce? I don't know if it's Bryce or Bobby Miller. Would that threesome work, or would India, Jones, and Luis Matos be enough for team rebuilding? Wow.
I didn't even hear all the stuff you just said.
Well, honestly. I'd try to get the Riley, Vargas, Miller sides. You have a pitcher replace Strider. That's my 2 cents.
I'm going to trust you on that one because I didn't pick up everything you put down.
There's a lot going on there, and I don't even know which Miller it is. So that doesn't help the cause at all. But yeah, that'll do it. Sorry I had to rush us there at the end. But,
no, don't be. I probably should get off now anyway with all my family and kids and chaos in the background.
Final thoughts as you grind on through the 12th week of the season now as contending for the main event championship.
It's like the only thing that comes to mind is like, just keep swimming. Just keep. That's why I have kids, so it's like instantly like Nemo's like, Dory, what do you do? You swim. Yep. It's. I'm trying to remember. I ranted about how it's not a long season. No, it is. I need to realize there's a reason why we keep echoing it. Maybe we just need to stop saying it because it's obvious. But it's just frustrating because my competitive nature gets the best of me. I get really bad anxiety just monitoring it and over scrutinizing every little move and realizing. I think my big thing is I need to go for a walk later. Go hang out with the kids and take a break, realizing all I can do is control who I put in, follow the trends, follow the process, and if the results are out of my control beyond that, I only control so much of the outcome, and that's been my hardest thing to remember.
Yeah, and I told you that right before we even recorded. I said it's the old joke the old saying that people hate. I have the RotoWire shirt, many do. Process over results. It sucks. It sucks, but trust your process. You can't control the results. That's the way I look at it. And as the great Ted Lasso once said, be a goldfish. That's one thing I'm trying to live life with these days. Just be a goldfish. And that'll make things so much easier with so many things in life, let alone a fantasy blow up from time to time. But all right, everybody, check out Kurland on Twitter at Mike_Kurland. Go to Game of the Edge Fantasy on Patreon, patreon.com/GTE Fantasy to get all his awesome stuff there, as well as The Athletic, his podcast, the Bases Loaded Pod.
Yeah, it's still a thing. It's just very intermittent. Yeah. It's between all the time. Now with the kids home for the summer, man, I make time for this for sure because I really enjoy this. And all the Patreon stuff. I just live streamed for the first time, and I usually just take my live stream and put the audio on pods. So that's where it's like I'm trying, but it's really inconsistent in season. But off season, it's super busy and super loaded with information because I have so much more time and there's not the consistent. Everything is changing rapidly, so I have time to actually produce it and put it out myself and all that. That's the thing. It's not.
And check out his YouTube, of course. He's always putting shorts out and other cool stuff there. Yeah. So lots of stuff from Kurland as always. It's always great chatting with you, my friend. And maybe we'll do it again next week.
I would like to. I think we have a schedule at this point. But yeah, we'll talk next week. Thanks for having me, Bubba. As always,
you can find me on Twitter at BDentric. And this was Benched with Bubba, episode 593, week 11 FAAB recap with Mike Kurland. Catch you all next time.